Why is living with your parents as an adult looked down upon in the US? I'm 30 years old, no wife or kids. I basically pay all the bills at my parents' house, which is cheaper if I lived on my own. I'm saving money to buy a house as I don't want to waste money on an apartment, yet I get negative comments when I tell people I live with my parents. Because individual independence is generally emphasized in our culture. Cultures that value communal prosperity and familial support often have less stigma against intergenerational households. I'm 32 and still live with my parents. As much as it sucks sometimes, I think about the future after they pass away. I'll be grateful for all the time I got to spend with them. I'm 30 living in my parents' basement. It's finished and bigger than any apartment, people making twice what I make could afford. Also, I can help out my aging parents. Moving out would be financially the stupidest thing I could possibly do. My youngest is 29 and he lives with me. It makes it much easier financially on both of us, and I love having him around. There was economic prosperity that allowed it. You didn't need to listen to your parents' inferior views on life for your entire life for a short period of time in this country. Some people may assume you don't have your shit together. But, honestly, who gives a damn what they think? As long as you're all happy and you're not hurting anyone, that's the only thing that counts. Chicken. I'm 26. My mom has been a widow for 5 years. Me and my girlfriend live with her. Helps with the bills while saving up for a house, and more importantly to me, to be there for my mother. She has never been alone and does not like to be. I've been through the negative side plenty with people. But it is what it is. We will probably buy a house next year. And my plan is for her to move in with us and rent her house out. Flip it around and say my parents live with me. It has nothing to do with your parents. It is about independence. There are major life events that adults need to know how to navigate. And when living with your parents, most people tend to rely on them for those decisions and events. Sort of like a crutch. Also, when starting to date, it's impossible to have alone time when you live with your parents. While I understand the mindset, I do think it needs to be a conversation to find out if they are really thinking and planning ahead, or if they are just refusing to grow up. Anybody who still thinks that is either much older and lived in a time of prosperity, or young and hasn't met reality yet. Current economic problems in the US don't just allow everybody to do whatever and be financially stable. If you have a steady job with a location you can live in, taking a risk right now just because some people think that's bad just isn't a smart move. It especially doesn't matter if you are the one paying the bills anyway. Bro, I just made a financial post talking about saving money while living with parents, and the amount of people that made fun of me for still being at home sucked. Same. I think it's because before, living with your parents at 30 meant you weren't working and were just mooching off of them. I split the bills with my dad and pay half the groceries. I cook at least 2 times a week. And my dad cooks 3. We both help my mom pay her bills. If anything, my mom's the mooch. Anytime I start looking for houses again, they get all moody and start listing off all the terrible things about owning your own home. I mean, if I left, who would change the TV input? Or restart the router? Or update their phones? People are stupid about this. Judgy. There's probably not the same stigma there used to be attached to it. Somewhere around half of millennials live with their parents. US culture strongly emphasizes individualism, which comes with its own pros and cons. Needing to rely on someone or require support is seen as a weakness. That's basically the long and short of it. They are just bullying you. Take a moment to reflect on this. At what point is it any of their business? Why are you providing them with any details of your living arrangements? About 1 in 12 households are multi-generational, and the numbers are increasing of multi-generational homes. Since the cost of living has far outstripped income levels for 2 decades now, I'd truly ignore the bullies who baited you with that nonsense, and focus on people who don't do that. Most people will assume you are a loser or lazy or you are broke. Anyone willing to verbalize this opinion to you is that in their souls. Honestly, I think people are just limited in their thinking. When new humans are born, many things are pushed into their minds, such as what to do, what to say, what is appropriate, what isn't, and so on and so on, from the people who took on things that were pushed into their minds. And these things are not our own, but many take it as it is. We are not taught to lead ourselves and be independent thinkers, but to follow, conform, and I believe this limits our thinking. So if one grows up with certain ideas pushed into their minds, then they will sometimes frown at people who do it differently. Because for a long time living on your own was easily achievable in the US, so it became the norm. But nowadays, that stigma is dying down for sure. I'm in my mid-30s and I recently moved back home. I couldn't do it on my own anymore, and if I have roommates, it's gonna be my family. I pay my share and do a whole lot of cooking. I'm single with no kids and have zero shame about living with them. It's the smart decision. We all still maintain our privacy and separate lives. We help each other out. I think it'll be normal in a few more years if wages don't start to go up to match inflation. I'm just ahead of the curve, lol. It's frowned upon because young people don't want to bang with someone else's parents in the next room. Pretty self-explanatory. Just moved back in with my mom at 37. I also moved back from another country, and this time with a partner and our 2 kids in tow. Grandma is now right here for her grandkids and is helping immensely with their school routine. Don't know what we'd have done otherwise. I think you're alluding to a stigma that's fortunately dissolving rather quickly these days. First of all, why do you care what others think? It's your life to live. Second, when you own your own house and it's paid off, and you have enough down that your mortgage is low enough that if you get fired, you could work at Walmart and still not lose your home. And they will be in debt for the rest of their life trying to struggle just to barely make it. And still have a bunch of debt. You are doing it right. Because it obviously means you have failed at life. Individualistic values versus collectivist values. It's a sign of independence and success. You can afford to live alone and don't need your parents to take care of you. Even if this isn't true and the adult child is, for example, footing all the bills of the household, the negative perception is ubiquitous. You are doing exactly what any smart person would be doing. It's just our culture. When I was stationed in Italy back in the 90s, it was a little odd to us in a cultural sense. Not judgmental one, that we had friends who as siblings were in their mid-30s with good careers. One was a successful lawyer living at home. That was the expectation. Nothing financial about it. They lived at home until they started a family of their own. Depending on the situation, it just might mean adding a floor to the family home. Based on my observation, it depends on culture. I am living in Vietnam. I've heard many people say that Americans usually don't live with their parents when they turn 18 years old. While in Vietnam, most parents always want their children to live with them. This is completely normal. Therefore, a house can have about 2-3 generations. If my mom had a basement, I would go live there tomorrow. I'm almost 50 and I've moved in with my mother as her caretaker. People my age get it. You do you. Fuck what other people think.